Hey everybody, it's Don. I'm here with Alyssa Ditch. Welcome to Don't Worry, I'm Finite. A little bonus content from our episode. If you haven't listened to our episode yet, go over to anchor.fm/Don't Worry, I'm Finite and listen to our podcast episode. We had a great conversation. I wanted to sit down with Alyssa and do a little intuitive healing session just to kind of see what it's like and get into it and see where it goes. What do you think?
Sounds awesome. Thank you.
So I have no idea what to expect. As we talked about expectations on the podcast, I
Yeah.
have no real expectations here. I'm not sure where this will go or what it will be like. So I'm very curious.
Yes, and I join you in that. Yeah, we'll just see where it goes. I was
Sure.
thinking once we started talking about this that it would be good to just kind of go back to the interview that we did the other day,
Yeah.
because there's always just so much more to dive into whenever you start to, like you said, open the floodgates.
Hmm.
And because of the timing of that, we had to close them back up. But
Sure.
I think that there's a lot there when you talk about childhood and things that affect you now, and it's great that you have so much awareness of who you are and what you were feeling back then and what you might have needed back then.
Right.
um, so I think that if we just start with that and see how that feels.
Sure.
You
Briefly,
had
is there a place, is that going to be up and available the whole for viewing?
the interviews.
Yes.
Yes, on my YouTube channel, I will post links on social media on
Okay.
Instagram
All
at
right. So when
Alyssa
that's
Ditch.
available, I'll put the link down below as well.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just reworking the page right now,
Okay,
but
great.
I'm just going to make that more of a men rising page.
Sounds good.
So, so yeah, I think when we were in the interview process, you were talking about some of those things from your childhood that you're aware of, but they still affect you more than you realized.
Yes.
Is there something specific that comes to mind when you were talking about that you notice affects you more daily?
I talked a little bit just about kind of seeing my father's voice come out of my mouth sometimes, and I see my like I see myself kind of bottle things up, and as we talked about on the podcast, I come out as anger, and when really it's insecurity or something else that I just I'm feeling insecure about something, I guess is the best way to say it. And I guess I see how maybe that's kind of the same as what my dad was doing when I was younger, that he got angry about things I didn't understand why he got angry about. And I
Yeah.
think that was his way of expressing that. I don't know if that's what you're asking, but
Yeah, that is what I'm asking. So I guess, in the effort to break the cycle, right, we have to do something different. So when
right.
we see and recognize, oh, we're doing the same thing that they did, I think that first piece, which you already have, is awareness of, oh crap, this is happening and I don't want to repeat this cycle. And so the next thing is figuring out, well, I need to change something. And what does that change actually look like? So, have you dove a little bit deeper into that, into some of those situations?
Yeah, and I mean, unfortunately, for better or worse, they are analyzed after the fact, and I have seen myself change a lot over time, like specifically if we're talking about in romantic relationships. I had seen myself kind of repeat the same mistakes, but then react to them differently, like reel myself back in more quickly or realize that it's happening in the midst of when it's happening. And sometimes, I mean, it still feels like an apology doesn't do enough to to rectify the situation.
Sure.
um but it's something that like stays with me all the time, and I've not only spoken openly about it and discussed it with my partners, but I write about it. Like I will write, whether it's like writing in poetry or writing in journal form. I write and reflect on it. And I also try to come up with like what to do the next time. Like be
Hmm.
not only be mindful of the situation that I'm in and say, okay, I see this starting to happen. Like I see the warning signs that this is about to happen. So to
Hmm.
stop myself and sit there and before reacting, ask myself, is this what I'm actually reacting to? Is this the right way to react to this? Or am I sad about something, or am I disappointed with something? And if
Mhm.
so, how else can I express that and not take it out on somebody else whose fault it almost definitely is not.
Sure. Yeah, it's so common, especially in those intimate relationships, because you're so close with them, right? And it's the
Yeah.
similar to how we were with our parents, and a lot of times it's those lessons from parents that repeat in our intimate relationships, because there's that vulnerability and closeness, and we think, well, we just don't know any better, until we're aware of it. I think the hardest part in that situation, in these types of things, is identifying it in the moment. And it really is about being aware of the feeling in real time to the best of your
Yes.
ability. And you start with exactly what you're doing, which is being aware of it after the fact,
Yeah.
and then and then going back. And that's how I think that's how we all start, and that's how we all learn to do these things. And then the hardest thing is, like, when you are aware, okay, this is coming, I'm feeling this, and I think speaking a truth in that moment, even if you don't have everything figured out. And you kind of touched on this um, when we were talking, that you'll keep going until you talk it out to you talk out a solution, right?
Right.
um, Giving yourself permission to not have to do that, to just say, I need a minute. I can tell that I'm feeling something. I have no idea what it is,
Hmm.
and I just need a minute because I don't want to take it out on you.
Yeah.
um, I think that as men, it's trickier than women, it seems, just generalizing, but it seems like it's harder for men sometimes to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm guilty
and
of that for sure.
yeah, yeah, I think we all are to a degree. And so that might be something that could be really powerful for you in those moments, to just admit that you don't know what's going on in you, and that you need some time to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that could be worked out, depending on your partner and where that person's at. You could figure it out together in real time, or it could be a situation where you need to just step away and take a little time and trust that that person, or ask that person to please hold space for you. Because you know I think the more we can speak what's really, really happening and practice that, the better the situation turns out. So sometimes that looks like, listen, ultimately, I love you. I want to stay connected with you. I don't want to be fighting with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But right now I'm triggered and I don't know what to do. So I just need a minute to figure that out.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I would benefit me greatly to, as I'm more and more learning when these things are kind of rising up in me, to step outside the situation instead of feeling like the immediate the need to immediately resolve it
Mhm.
is probably less healthy than going for a walk. For me would probably be the way to do it. Just
Mhm.
go be by myself for a while and take a walk and think about what's happening. And because my ability to separate, like, the need to resolve something or be right about something in the moment will manifest as argument, anger, whatever, versus
Mhm.
if I step outside of the situation and examine it from without for a second, then I can probably uh, come back with a little more compassion or empathy to the whole thing, and understand that the things that I might have said as a knee jerk reaction in the moment are probably not the right things to have said, and probably not even what I really believe or mean, just
Right.
the way that things have come out.
Yeah, they
So
usually are, because in the moment we tend to be acting on our ego, like, and it's, that's just part of the human experience, right? Like, we don't want to be wrong. We
yeah,
don't want to um look like we're not in control, or like we don't know, or look weak. And I tell you what, though, like, at the end of the day, I always have more respect for a partner who's able to just look at me and say, I don't know, or I was an ass and I'm sorry, or I was totally acting on my ego, and when you're in a relationship where you can both do that, you just tend to have so much more respect and trust between each other, because ultimately it's like every issue is your own personal issue.
Hmm.
you know Even if somebody does something that's so horrible and it's directed at you, we all still have the capacity to walk away or to make a different choice or to not let it bother us or whatever, or to just look at why it does bother us.
Right.
So that's that, like I was talking about in the podcast, that question for me is, why is this affecting my inner peace?
Right.
um, why do I feel the need to fix this person or change this person?
Yeah.
That's something that I struggle with, or I have in past relationships. Like, oh, I see the potential, or I just want this person to be like this. And it's like, wait a minute, I have to rewind and go, wait,
Yeah.
why? Why do I want that? What is it in me that needs to shift or to heal?
Yeah, I
Um,
think you're right. And pointing the lens on yourself is just as important as as like trying to figure out why somebody else is the way they are, because you only have control over your own reactions to things. So changing that would definitely be a big improvement for me, for sure. Because as much as I like to consider myself understanding myself and self-examining, it's still harder for me to do what I should do in the moment, in the heat of the moment, for sure. So being able to step
Absolutely.
outside of it probably is the best way to handle it.
Yeah, and we're all in the same boat. I mean, it's hard for everybody in the moment. When you're triggered, that's the practice. The practice isn't when you're all relaxed and everything's going
Yeah,
well.
it's easy now.
Yeah, the practice is when you're triggered, your partner's triggered. Now what? And truly the best thing that anybody can do is to take a moment and go inward in that moment, and not try to change our partner, and just really look and decide what we need in that moment. And I think with that comes such an awareness, um, of all the things that are triggering us, and and all those outside sources. When you go inward, you can kind of see what's around you and what's bothering you, and then you can start to sift through it little bit by bit with what you need. And I think the right partner will support you in that. They'll be right
Totally.
there too, doing the same thing. And then you can come together and say, well, when you say this, honestly, it triggers me, and I understand that's mine to work on and to heal. But um, I think a supportive partner would be like, oh, I don't want to trigger you.
Right.
Maybe I'll rephrase that, or maybe I'll stop saying that, or you know what I mean? So I think then you can start to work together as a team. But yeah, the lashing out and blaming other people and trying to fix other people, it never works. But we all, or at least a lot of us, have had that example. And so that's ingrained in us. And so
Yeah.
now we're the people coming in and saying, you know what, it stops now. I want to change this. I want to heal this. I want better. And better looks like taking a deep breath in the moment and saying, okay, I don't know what's going on with me. So let me take a minute.
Totally. Got to humble yourself a little bit. And definitely, I think that's great advice. So, yeah. Well, thank you for doing that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely something that I always want to work on, and something I will continue to work on. And thanks for helping me. I think having the tools to work on that kind of stuff, and being willing to use those tools or look for them in the first place, is like the
Yeah,
first step toward like changing and getting better.
absolutely.
So,
Awareness is like step one,
yeah,
being aware of it. And then, yeah, step two is just, I think, figuring out in a practical sense, what does that actually look like when
for
push
sure.
comes to shove? And it doesn't look like meditating on it in a quiet, perfect place. It looks like when you're triggered, when you're fired up, when it's like when you want to say those words that there's a little part of you that's like, don't say it.
Yeah.
Don't say it. But your ego's like, say it, you're right,
Yeah.
you're right.
Overcoming
Um,
that. Yeah.
yeah, it is. That's the practice, I think.
Totally. Cool. Well, I would love to get into some of the stuff deeper sometime, but I appreciate you doing this little thing here with me. I think
Absolutely.
this just the small bit here is very helpful. So
Thank you.
If anybody would like to find Alyssa online, I will put the links below. You can find her book and her website below. And you can find a link to our full podcast episode as well. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye.
Bye.